Hey guys, it's Tiffany of Tough Angel Books, and for this book talk, I'm going to be talking about Zenith, the Androma Saga Part 1, written by Sasha Alsberg and Lindsay Cummings. This story is about a girl named Androma Saga, who is wildly known as the Bloody Baroness and is also the captain of the spaceship the Martyr, I think it's named. Anyway, with a crew entirely made up of women, which is something you don't actually hear of anywhere. So Andy and the rest of her crew are known as space pirates, and they get given a pretty difficult job that none of them actually expected to get, and Andy is trying to figure out how to make it happen, because this is a very difficult job. I gave this ebook a 2.5 stars out of 5, and it left me, and that's mainly because while reading it, it left me with a lot of questions, and it just kind of left me confused at a few points. There were a lot of unclear parts, like there were a lot of scenarios that you read that were just very confusing and wasn't exactly clear. I'll bring a few up in the spoiler part of this video, so. And overall, it left me wondering if I want to read part 2 whenever it comes out, because, like, I'm not a fan of reading ebooks. However, it is far more convenient for me because at work and that, I work a lot at night, and when you're in a vehicle with a lot of people, you can't exactly turn on the light. So I started adapting to ebooks more, but I don't know. There were a lot of points in this story where it just jumped from, one scene to another, and there were a couple points that weren't very clear, and the transition wasn't exactly very clear either. This was, however, an interesting start to the saga. I will probably read part 2 just to see how it goes, but for the present moment, I don't know. And that kind of saddens me, because there's a lot of books I've read that are the start to a series that I'm just like, give me the next book now, and this is the first one, the first installment that I've read that has kind of left me with kind of it just kind of left me wondering if I want to read the next part, the next installment. So that's pretty much it for the spoiler-free part. So if you guys have not read it, go check it out. I will link to it to Amazon down below, but if I remember correctly, you can get it for Kindle, iBooks, Kobo, and a few other e-readers. I would suggest you read it because, like, this video is just my opinions and what I think of it. So please go check out the book for yourselves, and yeah, after you read it, you can come back and finish this video. Now on to the spoiler part of this discussion, and this is mainly so I can get all of my thoughts and opinions out there. I'm just going to start off with the intro to the story. Was about a character you find out named Valen, who you actually find out later on in the story is a bigger value character than you think. But the intro was actually a really strong intro. There were a couple repetitive parts into it where he repeatedly says this line, I am Valen, vengeance will be mine. I can understand that being said like maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times, and I think it was said like maybe 4 or 5 times in the intro. I just found that line was repeated a little bit too much. but it was a strong introduction to the story because it kind of, it kind of left you trying to figure out where was Valen, and who's going to rescue him and everything. A character I would have liked to know more about was Lyra, who is the pilot of the Martyr and the second in command on the ship. She seemed pretty badass and like a really fun character you would want to get to know, and she was just generally, I felt like she was a badass character, but she wasn't. I felt she was skewed too much in this story. Like, you only find out a very small portion about her, and I wish we found out more about her. I'm hoping in part 2 you do find out more about Lyra and Valen, and you find out more about these characters. Another one that just kind of got thrown out of nowhere was Dextro, which is a bounty hunter and apparently Androma's ex, which was a little weird. I felt his introduction and a conversation that Andy and Lyra have were kind of flipped. Like, I would have heard, like, there's a part that Andy and Lyra say, what if it's him? But that's already after the part where you're introduced to Dex. I think it would have worked better if those parts were flipped, because, what if it's him? The only person that can, cause the ship to go into complete halt or anything. And then you introduce Dex. That I felt would have worked a lot better and would have had more impact. But the fact that it switched points of views randomly, like there was nothing to indicate it. And then, you meet Dex before you find out what the reference to him is, which didn't really work for me. I felt out of place and a little disjointed. And there was a very unclear part. There's a lot of unclear parts. There are random flashbacks that have no clear entrance. There's like one flashback that does, and even then it doesn't have any clear description as to what actually happened. It's like a 2-second flashback and that's it. And that was when you find out about Andy's first kill, which doesn't have any like proper detail. You kind of find out like what happened before and what happened after, but you don't find out anything in the middle, and I'm hoping that in part 2 that they give you the stuff in the middle. And in this story, it only feels like there's only 4 people on this ship, and it's like, the way it's written, it makes it sound like this crew is big, it's massive, but you only find out about Gilly, Breck, Lyra, and Andy, and I'm hoping there's more. I'm really hoping there's more, because if it's just a 4-person woman crew, it doesn't make sense to me. And everything also kind of felt predictable. Like, there was no twist or catch or anything that felt like it was unexpected. And this is the first, publication for Sasha Alsberg, and so I'm trying not to be too harsh about it, because I know it's her first piece, and then after this she's going to grow, and I'm hoping it'll turn out to be this wonderful, wonderful story, but at the moment, I don't know. But that is it for this book talk. Comment down below if you read it, what you honestly think about the story, if you agree with anything I said, or if you disagreed, if there was anything that actually did catch you off guard, or if you found these things a little bit more clearer than I did. Like this video if you are interested in reading this to find out your own opinions on this. I post new videos every Thursday with the random book talk. Tough Angel Books on Twitter if you want to tweet your thoughts and opinions at me there. And until next time, happy reading!